that's why I'm here.
Okay, my name is Andy. I just came from Argentina. I represent a company that does software development. My challenge is to get to know Austin local community to expand our services here in the United States.
I'm Shreyas Krishnan. I'm with a startup called Ride Connect. We've been around since 2015. It's a platform that allows anyone to give and get rides. It can be used by fleet operators or by individuals for carpooling, or if you want to create your own private taxi service for your neighbor, you can do that. Last month, Ford Mobility and City of Austin recognized us as finalists for serving the East Austin, and right now they're going to further discussions to see how we can deploy it in East Austin. Yeah. And if you guys want, I got the apps on my devices. I'll be happy to show you as well.
My name is Owen Wu. I'm former with USAA, and used to work on their contact center and everything related to automobile claims.
Hi, I'm Danny Mitnocht, and this is, I think, the University of Texas McCombs Row. First year student. My background's in politics and government, but I am very interested in the mobility space and am hoping to work in it after graduating in 2021.
Hey everyone, my name is Chris Williams. Originally from the DC area, so I've been in Austin about 6 months. I'm another first year MBA student. Prior to coming to McCombs, I was working as an engineer for a couple of years before switching to tech consulting. So I've definitely got an interest in kind of that merge, or that intersection between tech and mobility and what that looks like.
I'm Austin Jones, also a first year MBA student at McCombs. I'm a former transportation engineer here in town, so I originally was a consultant and I worked at the City of Austin for a little bit. Now I'm kind of interning for free at Hitch, which is one of the startups here in town for ride sharing between cities.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicola. I work for Stantec. My background is in civil engineering. I'm really interested in autonomous vehicles, trying to learn more about design, planning, and implementation.
I'm Jared Milet. I'm with a company called Local Broadband. We build local fixed and fiber wireless networks. We think a big problem with mobility is with drones and autonomous vehicles and smart signals. There's really not the infrastructure to set that stuff up and operate it. So we're working on new models to build this type of local infrastructure that enables these things today and tomorrow.
So I'm Theo Calvin. I'm a creative director for Argo Design. It's a product design, product innovation firm. So I've been focused on transportation mobility about the last 6 or 7 years, doing a lot of in-vehicle entertainment designs for the future of connected vehicle services. I led a team that designed a new ride-hailing startup from the ground up a couple of years ago that launched in Dallas. So,
hi everyone, my name is Edward Boswell. I'm from Silver Car. We're across the street, actually. And we provide mobility services for dealerships owned by Audi, but also other dealerships beyond just Audi. And we also rent out silver cars, thus the name Silver Cars, so silver Audis at 26 different locations. And we also use ClaimBot for handling our tickets.
Thanks for the plug.
You're welcome.
I'm Miguel. I work with Neil at ClaimBot. We're a Google-backed startup here in Austin, Texas. We are building the system to scale customer experience for the future of mobility, the way drivers and riders interact with the people who provide those services. Instead of owning a vehicle that's changing, and it's an exponential problem, and we're helping customers like Silvercar scale it through an automation engine.
Hi everyone, my name is Joe. I've mostly worked as a software engineer for startups, mostly IoT, smart home companies. And I just saw a documentary on like where this space is at, and I was fascinated, and I was like, hey, and it popped up on my feed, and I was like, hey, I want to get more of a tech perspective, like more in depth, I guess. So
what was the documentary?
It was a PBS one.
I saw that. There was actually a 3-part series that ran on PBS.
Just search PBS mobility maybe, or?
I think it was PBS GPS like autonomous vehicles maybe?
Yeah, because they talked about the trucks.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was the most fascinating part to me.
Okay.
And like automation and.
Put a comment in the meetup so we can watch.
Exactly, yeah, that's kind of what, I mean.
Homework for the next one.
And by the way, before we move forward, Jimmy at Spears Consulting has gracefully offered to sponsor our meetup throughout the year. We're gonna be meeting up once a month here, so we'll have a permanent home, Capital Factory hosts the venue. Jimmy's helping us kind of put together what we need to kind of get some beer and some stuff. So thank you very much, by the way, I really appreciate it.
All right, so yeah, Jimmy has a short presentation, and then we'll hopefully have some good conversation too. So thanks for coming in.
Yeah, and if we would like, we could actually just slow this thing down a little bit. This is a good conversational size of the room. And this is just a short background. I've worked at USAA for 12 years, Farmers Insurance prior to that. I ran their Strategic Initiatives Department, and then also with Nationwide Insurance prior to that. So I have about 33 years or so inside the insurance industry. I'm a retired guy, but however, the exact same day I retired, I went home that next night and there were 6 contracts in my inbox with people that wanted to do some other things with me. So that's what I did. One of the companies, is this being taped? This is going to be
Yeah, we should be live right now
Okay.
On the YouTube.
I just want to make sure I don't tell too much, you know what I mean? One of the companies I do some business for is a company called Tractable, and they're an artificial intelligence company. They're out of the UK. They have the number 1, 2, and 3 largest player in the UK, and they do artificial intelligence on vehicle damage. So they write an appraisal, they can take a look at an image, tell if the car's total loss, repairable. They can do that type of work. Unbelievable. They have 8 different, 8 different insurance carriers on 8 different countries in Europe. And then also they have number 1 Tokyo Marine as well. So if you have a claim and you're in Japan with Tokyo Marine, you submit your images, it'll go through Tractable. They're also in Canada, very large group. But they're really big in this mobility space. They're going to make decisions very quick and start to help us do some things. Another company I do some business for is called Onum. And then Onum is a blockchain company out of Cleveland. They're out of Cleveland, Ohio. The guy that runs it or owns it, his name is Bernie Marino. And Bernie owned dealerships all the way from Cleveland, Ohio, all the way down to Florida. He sold them all, $250 million. Well, he actually kept 2, one in Cleveland, one in Florida. But other than that, he sold them all. He took all of his money, put it into downtown Cleveland, and I'm the person that helps them with their insurance company interfaces. Their number 1 thing that they're going to work on at Onum is going to be this company called Champ Titles. And Champ Titles, you could imagine, well, you know how a ticket looks if you get an airplane ticket on Southwest, or if you buy something to Ticketmaster. That will be your car title. So when it comes time to change titles, easy, easy, easy. You go to if you're in the state of Ohio, you'll take that paper title, they'll make it digital, and if I sell my car to you, I just tell you, I take the passcode, I put it in the cloud, the state takes a fee, transfer fee. It comes down on your phone, you change the digital title, or the passcode, now the car's yours. The state's been satisfied, that's how quickly it happens. You can now change title ownership that quickly. Imagine if we're able to string a lot of this kind of stuff together, and then we take a damage image that comes in from a tow company, I consult for them, they're out of Utah, and this is a towing network. And they'll have digital images on vehicles. Now, another company that I do some business for is a company called Funnel AI. You guys may know them. They're out of San Antonio. And they do a lot of work in artificial intelligence with neurolinguistics. And they really find consumers very, very close to the point of sale in social media. And then that allows the person that wants to do some business with them to interact right on the spot. Unbelievable work. Also, I bet you know Caliber Collision. Caliber Collision is the nation's largest auto chain, or I should say collision chain. They have 1,800 stores. By the end of this year, it's not a secret, they'll have 2,000 stores. So they are gigantic when it comes to, of course, wanting to get the car to them very quickly, repair, and if it's not repaired, you can then total loss, and then change the title very, very quickly. And another company very interested in this mobility space, what's going to go into that, is a company called LKQ. They are the largest parts organization in the United States. They're a $15 billion company out of Chicago. So every single person that's ever had a car repaired in this room, you have got something that's from LKQ in your vehicle. So big companies, and that's the type of work I do. But the one that we're going to talk about today, that's going to be some fun, is going to be the American Center for Mobility. They are the largest connected car testing facility in the United States. So if we take a look at what they do, they accelerate the research, development, test, validation process for mobility products. And what I like about this organization is that it's over 500 acres. If you go to the Detroit airport, when you land, you take a left. And you go about 7 miles out, and there's a big facility that was once owned by General Motors. And that's where they made all the World War II bombers in that building, or in that whole group of area. They've now converted it. The open road is now, the state's decommissioned it. It's pure automobile testing facilities. Well, I'll take a slide and show you all the companies that are there, but I'm the person that represents them for their insurance. So any insurance liaisons with this, I'm the person that they hire to help them with those relationships. And then they have different products and technologies in a reconfigurable environment. This intersection that you see that they're going to, they can be reconfigured in so many different ways. They simulate different weather conditions. It's unbelievable. And then their job is to help with industry standardization. We were talking about networks before. There is a huge network in place there now. And then, of course, when we talk about, we have our students in the room. Oh, let's see, we go back. Let's see if I can't go back one.
Yes.
All right. And so with this one, if we talk about having our students in the room, these are all the companies that interface at the American Center for Mobility. We have all these different universities, Michigan. I think there's like 15 universities that all have people on site. We have Microsoft, Subaru, Visteon, a big parts company, Ford Motor Company, test all their equipment there. AT&T, that's the network.
Something's up.
Yeah.
That water
There you go.
source. There's still water.
Thanks, Alex.
All right. So with this, we have a number of things. So we have this company called Intertech. They're a very fascinating company. They have about 30,000 employees, and they are the group that does the infrastructure. So all the engineers, and I think with Intertech, they have about 25,000 engineers on staff throughout the world. But they are the backbone, and they take care of all the standardization and everything for the center. And while we're talking about it, there's a whole big, we were talking about Planet M before, the couple folks in the room. Planet M is a city, and it's part of this as well. Once we start to take a look at mobility, this is what I think you'll find fascinating. How are we going to react when trucks are going down the road in a platooning? There's no driver in them. There's a social and there's a psychological aspect to all this. And then this is what's going on with like Planet M. They see how people interact with these new models of mobility. So it's a lot more than just about constructing an app. You're constructing an environment in which people will start to operate with new kind of technologies. You certainly don't want people stepping out in traffic wrong. You don't want a number of things that'll happen, because we're almost talking about a three-dimensional space, because here there's also drones as well. And we were just talking in the back of the room that it may be normal that very soon we're on the 16th floor of this building and we actually see an Amazon drone go by, or one with a company that's delivering medical supplies, or even a pizza. And it goes to the top of the building, and you can think about Planet M at this American Center for Mobility. They will have an architect from the school that's on site. Now when it goes to the top of the building, how does the drone land? There's got to be something there. How does the residents get up there to actually get their supplies and their goods? So it's going to be very fascinating what goes on with this. And I'm very fortunate that I get to be in the middle of it and help the insurance companies, because I'll tell you one thing that touches everything on that in front of us, and it is an insurance company. Now, this is just a map of an overview of the center. You can see there's some very large, we'll come back up. There's some very large roads that are there. These were once part of a highway. The state of Michigan took them out. They built another highway around it to accommodate the center. They left those roads there. There's an area here where there's this is a 700-foot tunnel, and it's built so that there's no more connection to the network. They've made, and they put blockers on the end. How does that car still navigate in those areas? So I would recommend that if you really want to know more about this space, go online and take a look at some YouTube videos that are coming out of the American Center for Mobility. You'll really get to see how the stuff that you're working in and getting ready to work in interfaces with this. And then we see a lot of V2X, and that V2 is just vehicle to X, vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to infrastructure. All that type of stuff is tested there. Everything's over a very controlled 5G network that's there. That's put in by AT&T. Microsoft is the company that has that if you go there, you're going to work on their technology with their test. But you get to test with large amounts of vehicles, because there's many garages on site. And all these garages have vehicles in them from different companies. So you can run them all at once, almost like a swarm, if you like. There's big centers where they can oversee rooms bigger than this, full of TV screens. And everyone's monitoring what their vehicles are doing on this closed track. And then, this is what I find fascinating. I always liked this part of school. Even though I wasn't a psychology or sociology major, I've learned to really respect it. Particularly if you think about the industry that I came from, the insurance industry. There's a lot of that goes on if you think about post-catastrophe. How people deal with what they have now to get used to. How are they going to recover from where they are? How will things be rebuilt? I could very well see this center being part of that once we have roads. Now there's time for roads to be rebuilt. What can we do and learn from this facility to now do the best part of roads that may be damaged through floods, hurricanes, or other things? Since we now know that those roads have to be rebuilt anyway, what could we do at the state of the art that can have vehicles interface with it? And if anybody's interested in touring it, let me know. If you're going to be in Detroit, it's a fascinating site to tour. And this is just a couple of the projects that they're doing. I pulled these out as an example. This is fuel-efficient platooning and mixed traffic in highway environments. So you'll see the center set up with trucks they have to maneuver, they have to navigate. And one of the things that I love about the center is that, again, you can go to the big room where the test center is, and if you see what a large truck is looking at, and it looks like there's other vehicles around it, they're not there. They've been simulated to be there. So what the truck is just actually going down an empty lane on a road, but the center has now put in the truck's visual eyesight vehicles and people and children and obstacles that come up. And so you can test and you can have a video collision of this real life truck with an item or an object that it should have avoided. So it's really a very cool thing to see. But this is what the Department of Energy is doing there for their test. And you can see they're working with Michigan Dearborn, Auburn University, Michigan Department of Transportation, U.S. Army Tank Automotive Research. You can imagine how tank vehicles would like to have this technology as well. And then this is the Department of Energy. And this is a program for energy efficient mobility systems, validating connected automated electronic vehicles, models, and simulations. They're doing their testing there. One with the U.S. Department of Transportation, automated driving system. This is going to be an automated driving system. Looks like a demonstration grant. So these schools are all plugged in. And of course, if we take a look, University of Michigan, Wayne State, Ford Smart Mobility, that may be a part of the group that you're talking about earlier. We have some consulting houses, and of course the Michigan Department of Transportation. And these are all the people and companies that interface with this system. So it's a very, very well thought out ecosystem. And so when we take a look, we have the OEMs, Tier 1, Tier 2. And if you're not from that community, that can, Tier 1 and Tier 2 suppliers, you're getting down to the point of people, what it would take to have just components of an engine. Components of different LiDAR, radar systems, not just a completed unit. So the Tier 1, Tier 2 suppliers, dealers, aftermarket sales organizations. SEMA, I don't know if you all know what that is, but that's the big Specialty Equipment Manufacturers Association. They actually have the second biggest show that's in Las Vegas. But imagine a brand new truck that's being produced today, Ford F-250, Ford F-150, and now a company wants to manufacture an aftermarket bumper. Remember before, you just took your stupid bumper and replaced it for a bigger stupid bumper, So now you got that bigger stupid bumper can't be. It's got to be a bigger but smart bumper because it cannot affect anything to do with any of the sensors. And think about the weight distribution, so it has to be very plugged in. And then if it's too heavy and the springs aren't right, now we have things that are lined up incorrectly. A person that I know 2 weeks ago, he had a Ford F-150, and he bumped into, in his own parking lot at work, he bumped into a small Hyundai. Of course, he thought he had no damage. Hyundai, it had damage. They were in a business, he cashed the person out. Told him to go to a repair shop, get it done, he'll take care of him. But he thought on his truck he was good to go. 1 week later, conditions were perfect. 1 week later, he's driving his truck. Again, he looked at it. This is a guy from that industry. This is a guy that inspects damaged vehicles for collision shops. This is how he makes his living, right? He's driving, and he's going where there's a bridge that's not one of the real tall, like 20-foot ones. It's a little bit shorter. His truck sees that because now the sensor is pointed upwards. It sees that. He's in Dallas. His truck slams on the brake. It thinks it's about to hit something, and it does it right on the highway. He cannot make his truck move. He cannot make it go because it's telling it to stop. He gets over, then he sees now he has to take His truck, he tows it home. He now sees that a tiny little bump up, the car's no longer drivable. There's going to be a whole different mobility impact that we're going to have with damage to other vehicles that we're not looking at now. But so these are why these aftermarket sales organizations, they may go out of business if they cannot interface with the newly built vehicles because they're going to be reacting and riding a little bit different. Of course, insurance companies, finance companies, transport, we have telecom technology, you name it across the globe. These are the companies that all interface at the American Center for Mobility. And I really was glad to have this time to put it on your radar because what we understand, and this is the way in the insurance industry, if you really wanted to, if you want to have some conversations, this is what I tell my clients now to sort of, in order to talk about it a little bit better and to keep your conversation flowing in a very constructed way. Think about the word ACEs. Every time that you're going to do some business, talk about automated. So you're going to see what's automated that we're working on. We're going to see what's connected, electric, and shared. If you can take care of the word ACEs during your conversation with a potential client or anyone that you're working on, I swear you can get about 95% of what you want out of that conversation. That's going to get you to where you're going to be much more knowledgeable about what they do or knowledgeable about how you can interface with them by taking the conversation and just do it in your mind. You know, ACE is automated. Now we're talking about how with this connected part. We're going to talk about the electric part and of course with shared. So we're going to talk about those different business models. And then automated vehicle and ADAS systems. That's the automated driver assistance systems. This is what we were talking about before. Companies have really got to understand what's going on and how those should be recalibrated. This is the business that my son is in automotive recalibration. He's the national sales manager for one of the largest companies that does this service for companies. 27-year-old kid, but I got him on this type of stuff when he was 22. So he's well beyond his 5 years in this part of the industry. And then that wraps it up. But any questions or any conversation? Yes, sir, Joe?
How did this all start? Was it like different manufacturers, like Detroit? Was it like a Detroit thing, like grassroots? Like how did
Yeah, the way this started was it started out with that group that was called Planet M. Planet M was mostly just downtown Detroit. And then they reserved a small city block for Planet M. They realized that you've got to go bigger and deeper if you're going to understand it. So that's what drove the state of Michigan to say, let us take aside some land, let us work with General Motors. They got that property. They took the best engineers because, like it or not, you know, I'm a Texas guy. I'm a North Carolina guy too. That's where some of the best automotive engineers come right out of Detroit, you know. People are hiring them every day to get them on their teams. So they took them and they scoped out what would the ideal center be. They went around and then the state of Michigan took a lot of money and then put this money into it. And then these companies all donated a significant amount of money in order to make this happen. And then I sort of casually went up there and showed you some of the industries that are there. What I didn't say, because this is not a pitch to get any money, but those companies donate hundreds of millions of dollars a year to the facility. And then those garages I talked about that were there that had vehicles in them, those garages are garages that people have purchased and they lease them, then they actually pay money to maintain them, and they have their fleet of test vehicles there. And then they have a very collaborative space. They have a space about the size of the floor of this building that everyone works in, and then they actually collaborate among themselves as well. So they are getting some real cash benefits out of it. by having two companies that are there that can now work together and then say, hey, what would this work? Let's go put it on the test track and work it right away. But that's what happened there. Yeah, it's very neat. Yes, sir.
So I think it might have been on the first or second slide, you kind of touched a little bit on like industry standardization and regulatory policy as relates to autonomous vehicles.
Sure.
And so I feel like, at least from what I've seen in the news more recently, it seems like the government has kind of taken a backseat almost and been a little more restrained in terms of kind of unifying the industry. And I think the rationale has been, I guess they kind of want the industry to kind of come together and come up with their own policy and almost self-regulate to an extent.
Sure.
Or at least come together and kind of make a proposal. And so I'm wondering how involved, if at all, ACM is in terms of like helping to bring these disparate groups together to help drive some policy and regulation forward.
They're very, very involved. In fact, what you would see on site, some of those collaboration spaces, they'll take them and they'll have the governors of the states. They'll have the people that make the policy that are there. Now, one of the best sort of a litmus test that we can see what's going to go on, there is there's going to be a ruling that's going to happen. And it'll be the ruling about if this car is going and it has to avoid another car, what's it going to do? So is it going to swerve? Maybe hit softer targets, a family walking on the side of the road, or will it go and hit the other car head on, where the two harder cars would actually have a better chance of survival of their occupants rather than that motorcycle? There's a scenario where there's a motorcycle on the side, does it swerve over to avoid, hit the motorcycle or go? But that is going to be legislated. Now just imagine if you're an insurance carrier, you now know, right now we all risk it. There's an element of risk. Eventually, there will not be. There'll be an element of programming. Someone's going to say that this car will run over that family on the side of the road. No matter what you decide to do and how you steer it, that car will make that decision at that time and do it. So that's probably your biggest litmus test. If you can find out, and there's a panel of ethicists, they have rabbis, they have priests, and just a number of clerics that help them make these decisions, of course, with legal, because there's as much legal as ethical decisions behind it. But that's probably the biggest role of government at this point, rather than saying, can we run them up on I-35? Yes, sir.
So, my name's Jay. I just was talking with some folks at Lift Aircraft earlier today, and they were talking about how there's a mobility and automation institute or program coming to UT. And so I don't know if it's like beyond your scope or beyond your realm, but what do you think your role is in getting schools to jump on board and be a part of the program, and what incentives do you think these different players have? I don't know if you know about schools getting into the picture. I just would love to see your perspective.
Sure. I think that you were busy before, but we had a slide up here.
Oh,
and
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. No, I get it. You came in late. But here's the deal. These are the schools that are involved in it now.
Sure.
So I could very well see, there's one of these, the center that's starting in Texas as well. And I would really be able to see that you would have University of Austin at Texas, Texas at Austin, as well as those logos. But those are all the schools that have projects and students on campus now. And it's really built around that. This is actually probably the biggest thing. This, and honestly, this. This doesn't get talked about enough. The Office for Community and Economic Involvement, this is what it's about. It's keeping those jobs here in the United States. It's getting people educated in this field. And it's really about, that's what you do with an infrastructure. You keep people with jobs, you get them highly trained, and you get them highly educated, and then they can work for those large companies up there much better. But it all comes from this big center of testing. 500-acre campus there in Michigan.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah.
What's the most interesting challenge you've seen on the insurance side, like solving the insurance problems of this space?
Oh, well, the insurance companies, they have no idea what they're doing. You'll have people in these positions that really think that they know the answer, and they don't. I've worked with them. So what we have is a complete lack of understanding. If we take a look, this one. This is why we made this slide. Honestly, it's for the insurance companies. Automated vehicles, ADAS systems, evaluating the system performance and safety features. That's a kind way of saying to the insurance carriers, with your very, very antiquated actuarial staff that use textbooks from 1950 that look backward. They have no idea what they're doing. They are looking backward. This ain't looking backward. This is going forward. So with this, people will say, oh, it has that system on it. Let me tell you. You know how all of us, if we all took a test of driving, every one of us in this room, you could rank, if there's 30 of us in this room, you could rank us from 1 through 30. That's just the way math works, right? And that's the way insurance companies work right now. So they'll rank you based on your behaviors of what type of risk. I'm trying to inform them that doesn't count much anymore, because these cars act as differently as humans. You may have the Subaru eyesight system reacting much better, and it does, reacts much better than some of its pure technology. There are some tests where they don't take the simulated, where it's like a little vision, where, you know, a computer vision that goes across the screen. There is the computer test where they actually take a kid on a sort of a skateboard, but probably more sophisticated because it's engineers doing it, right? But they'll take them across the track and move them. Let me tell you, I've been in those cars. I've been in the cars that hit the kid. And I've been in the cars that do not hit the kid. They stop, they slow, and they swerve around it automatically. So this is one of our biggest challenges, is that we love to put things in a bucket. We love to have silver bullet answers, and it ain't the truth. So you have got to start ranking the cars by risk. So when they're not, so think about the Cadillac CTS, the new car right now. You can drive it. You can put it on the highway right out here, outside of Austin. You can drive it all the way to Corpus Christi, right? Never put your hands on the wheel. Next year, that car, you can look it up. Next year, that car and the Escalade model of that car is going to swerve. It's going to change lanes and do that for you. Right now, what you have to do, if you want to go around the vehicle, take it out, or put your foot on the brake, take it, steer around the vehicle, go, set it again, right? And let it go. Not in the future. So these technologies all drive differently. These technologies test differently. These cars brake differently. It's not that you buy a car that has this and you think it's great. Think about how a car has braking right now. And you know the cars have anti-lock brake systems. And then what does Car and Driver test everyone from 60 to 0? Because guess what? They all brake different. That's the same thing with this technology. It all handles different. Telematics, being able to leverage the cloud to understand automated vehicle system use and performance. This is what we're talking about. Our networks completely failed. That is a complete failure of a network system, and I don't need a network engineer in the room to tell me that. It's just horrible. Think about cars talking to each other, cars relating to the infrastructure. Insurance companies are the last one on the bus. They're the last ones to get this. You won't see it reflected accurately in your premiums when they could do a better job. And then also automating the claims process. They could do a much, much better job at that, given what technology that's out there. They can make your claim systems a lot faster. Oh, yes, sir.
What's their incentive to not act faster?
Their incentive not to?
What is the insurance company's incentive to stay put, path of least resistance?
Well, what you need to have a different leadership that now defines success in a different manner. How many TV commercials do you see that have insurance on it?
One out of every.
Yeah, 1 out of every 2. right? If you're watching TV, it's just constant. How about we take some of that spending and we're less worried about trying to fill that funnel of customers on the front end and put some of that cash into the back. Remember, everything in life is about priorities. You chose to spend the moments of your life right now in this room. This is a priority. I hope it works out for you. You know what I mean? I hope I can help with that bit of it. You know, I would try very hard to prepare and make sure I'm worthy of that time. And that's how it is at these large carriers. It's not that there's some grand scheme of it. They're just stupid enough not to understand what they could better do with their time. So it's going to have you're going to have to be able to better educate them and then let them see what's out there. And now it becomes a prioritization of the amount of resources they have and how they want to spend it. But I guarantee you not one consumer is saying, I'm really requesting that you change the rates on my car because my car is a safer car in the autonomous mode than it is without me. You wouldn't know that, right? So if that's not on the consumer's, radar, it's certainly not going to be on the insurance carrier's radar because they're, at the end of the day, they're going to spend some money on advertising. You know, so that's what it is. It's not like there's a large conspiracy. It's just that I think we have very ineffective and weak leadership at higher levels.
Sorry, just
Yeah.
quickly interrupt. Wouldn't like just the market be itself a force? I have my current auto insurance is this startup called Nobler, Nobler.
Sure.
Web 2.0. Short story long, they're very forward thinking. The guy came from insurance. They're all super into automation. My deductibles are cheapest I've ever had it. It runs on my phone all day, every time I get in my car. And I don't know, I'm like, yeah, I tell everyone about it, and they're like, this is a million times better than all the name brand ones. So
Right. Again, I guarantee you that one, and I know those folks over there. I know the group that started them. Their biggest hope is probably to be purchased. You think about Esurance was purchased by Allstate, and now Allstate is going to kill the Esurance brand. Yeah, think about that. So that's what goes on in that space. But that's the way it works, you know. But you're right. But see, you're a very informed consumer. You're probably one that takes some more risk. But there's a number of people that's out there. Once they start to see that they've lost an insured to that type of a model, that's when you'll see it become a focus, and it'll completely blindside them. And you know, there's things that you see dead on, and if I was a military guy for 13 years, so you learn to appreciate the peripheral, especially if you go into certain environments. The peripheral is where things happen, you know, not dead in front of you. I know it don't happen dead in front of you. But so that's where right now that company is. It's dead on the peripheral. It's on the edge of what's going on, not in the sight or the aim. Any other questions? Yeah.
Might not be about center mobility, but car shares recently, Car2Go and others have been struggling, closing. Do you have any thoughts on what's going on with kind of car sharing?
I do. It's not profitable. Nobody's made money at it yet. Everybody's lost money. That's the big thing. You know, the whole thing about we're going to buy market share and then worried about making a profit later. Everybody knows it didn't used to be that way. It was you make some money, then you go out and get you some more share. I think that in this space you see ups and you see downs. I'm not an expert in that part of it, but I do know that they're not making money, and I do know that people are looking at some other things in the model that makes money. Like I love what Silvercar is doing in that space. I mean, I'm a huge fan of what Silvercar is doing in that space. In fact, I just did a talk on Guild 21. You don't know it, but I spoke very highly of Silvercar. And I think that they're using you all to a very high degree, and that's how you're going to be able to scale. That's how you're going to be able to make money, you know. So yeah, so take advantage of that and really find that niche, and then go at it, you know. But yeah, any other questions? Yeah.
So I was mentioning to Miguel before the talk started about like I see cities like the city of Helsinki that they are really thinking ahead beyond like vehicle ownership. They are planned to sell you a subscription on mobility
Oh, sure.
that will combine buses, trains,
That's right, and they
scooters,
have all their
cars.
electric stations set up.
Right. Do you
Yeah.
see that happening in America?
No, I don't see that happening in America at all. No, absolutely not. That'll probably be one of the last things that happen in America. There may be a couple closed areas that you'll see it happen, but no, that's not going to happen.
Why?
Well, not in our lifetimes.
What,
Yeah.
What do you think is like the roadblock there?
People, the conventional folks. I have 5 cars. I'm probably one of the biggest roadblocks. Think about it. I own 5 cars. You think I'm going to give up in the 5 to go sit in shared model? And I'll let you know, probably the first subscription model patent that was put out there. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, you can get it. That's my patent, and that's from 13 years ago. So the subscription model, USAA owns it, and the internet, USAA owns it, so they can do something with it. But yeah, that's the first subscription model. I own it, so I helped invent it, and I'll tell you, it ain't going to happen. There's a lot of ways to lose money in that space. We got to get the finance companies just right. We got to get the ownership, the dealer model worked out just right. We got to figure out a way to service the vehicle. If we take a look right now, 30 years ago, the average length of a loan was 36 months. You talked about somebody if they took a 4 or a 5 year loan out. I mean, you talked about them, and I'm Southern, so my wife would whisper about them. Can you believe I heard they got 48-month loan? And I can't understand that. And my dad never had a car loan. You know, you buy a car, you don't get a car. So we go from 36 months, 48 to 60 to 72, and now we're at 84, and we're at 96. And the first 2 years of that loan now is repaying the loan prior, your negative equity that you carried over. So now you're going to have these cars sitting out there another 5 years. So you have a 7-year loan. You hadn't started paying on that car. So this is what you're looking at. You're looking at people indebted. People sitting on a 7-year car loan that have never really owned a car. They may as well just lease them because they're doing a subscription model right now. And that was the purpose of what I did 10 years ago, was to say, let's stop this cycle. Whoever's going to do it, just stop this craziness. Go ahead and just say, every month I'll devote so much to the payment, so much to insurance, so much to maintenance, and so much to fuel. That's how you do it. But people won't do that. They're in this cycle, and that's the hardest thing about this American cycle that we're in. And believe me, you're going to look in a couple years, they're going to inch it out another 6 months because the cars are becoming even less affordable, right? And they're coming with more technology on them. So it won't stop because it's that endless cycle. I hate to break the news, but that's what's going on. Yeah.
Quick question, I guess. How do you see Austin, or maybe even Texas more broadly, figuring in to the mobility discussion?
Well, I'll tell you, Austin ain't Texas. When we take a look at Texas, we really have to take a look at Houston, Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth, maybe Corpus. So then there's all the rest that you take that shaded pencil and you fill in, and then that's Texas. So that's the cool thing about Texas, and I love it, because there's 5 strong economies. And in 2008, when everybody else suffered in this nation, some of you are too young to really know what it meant. I knew what it meant, and it was awesome to be here in Texas and not see that. You would talk about those that suffered in the other 49 states because we did not go through that here. So with that said, you really need to have 2 models. And honestly, most bigger states, there's a bunch of states in the Northeast that you could put into a few counties in Texas, right? So, but most of the time in states, you're going to talk about an urban model and a rural model. And that's how we handled a lot of things in claims. We would have an urban solution and then a rural solution in order to be able to really respond real quick. So that's the way I would look at it. I wouldn't look at it as a Texas thing. I would look at it what the local is and what the local politics are. Because most of these things are going to come through political means, not the well-studied means of a university. It's going to be legislated by a group of people that are not that knowledgeable on it at all, and probably are more knowledge or probably more educated by a lobbyist that gave them the most money to think a certain way. Yeah.
I just had kind of going back to, I guess, the whole ride sharing type of car, I feel like autonomous vehicles eventually will just kind of remove the whole incentive of owning a car altogether, because you could just have, a bunch of these fleets, owned by one person or one entity.
Sure.
And you won't need the labor to basically manage them or drive them around. So I guess at this point, it'll kind of remove the incentive to even own a car at that point, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I tell you, again, that goes back to my patent, because the patent's actually fleet patent. And it's actually managing as a fleet. So I agree with you. Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. That the fleet model is going to be the one, and people will probably subscribe to that fleet in some way or the other. And you may subscribe on separate levels, probably depending on your use. And when you would want certain access to that fleet. So you may be a heavier user than others, and then others may even be more of a shared model within the same fleet. So we can see a number of things, but I agree with that completely. That notion, if that's the accurate notion, that's the one I would put all my money on. Is that fleet managed large model with different fleets, and you could even have even more. There's a few things that I like to do, and I learned this when I was at Nationwide, and it was a thing that I thought was the silliest thing. I made fun of it at first because it didn't come from me, and it was access, customization, and ease of use. Now every project since my Nationwide days, so I went from Nationwide to Farmers and USAA. I took that ACE, that access, customization, and ease of use, and every program that I did for every major carrier, that's the stuff I would have my team do. So that you think about fleet model, how will you access it? Customization of those vehicles that come, how will they be customized? Some will want very luxurious, some may actually have medical needs, right? And so we'll have to have that for them. And then of course, ease of use. Easier you make that use it, and then we'll go back to how we will communicate with the apps. But you take access and customization and ease of use of every project that you're going to pitch, you're going to win. Because it keeps you focused, and it keeps it very relatable, and it makes you think in those terms of how would you actually make something real, Oh, yes, sir.
We're working a bit with electric transportation. The city buses, we have 12 Proteras on order, a couple on the streets today.
Yeah.
So my biggest project right now is green hydrogen. So how do we bring a hydrogen station back to Austin? Because
Right.
the other one was gray hydrogen, fossil, natural gas drive fossil
Sure.
hydrogen, the pickles. So what I'm wondering, we came in late, but have you touched on eVTOL up in Dallas and Plano area?
No, we didn't at all. We mostly just talked about the autonomous and connected vehicle, but not the power plant.
Yes.
A lot of people think it's electric, but I think it's hydrogen fueled electric, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's sustainable. That's something that I would buy, if we had those type of things. When I lived in California, we had those. The BMWs that came in, that fleet. And the guy that did that lived in my neighborhood in Moore Park, California.
Cool.
So that's how I got a chance to know about it, because I didn't know what it was. Somebody had to tell me how this hydrogen thing made the batteries work. Then I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, but I knew a secret, you know? But I do. I think that's really the way to go. Very sustainable, and it's a lot faster than it is to have these charging stations.
That's right, your fill-up times. And
Yeah.
real quick as a follow-up, did you talk about the, kind of like what Richard Branson's doing in Florida, the idea of privatized Brightline rail? What we're talking about is this triangle to connect Dallas, Houston, San
Sure.
Antonio. But to do it possibly faster than Hyperloop areas because of Texas, we just have the Model West. If you can get these ones, you can do whatever you want, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And we didn't talk about rail because that autonomous center for mobility, that's just really just about that. But man, if you can layer that with rail, you know, it really works. I have a job where I get to go to London, and it just works like clockwork. I mean, rail moves people, you know. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Now, with these autonomous vehicles, the technology that's in the vehicles now to drive these things around, do you believe that the answer will be a combination of sort of interconnected network with that, or could it be one or the other?
I do believe that's an interconnected network with that. And I think that the eyes can come from a number of perspectives, particularly once we talk about smart cities and smart infrastructures. You know, you were talking earlier about the eyes on the poles. Those eyes on the poles can actually very well control traffic flows, and they can see further ahead of your vehicle. Drones that are up above can actually see things and help you well maneuver to left and right lanes, and, you know, be like a flow of electricity rather than a stopped up water hose, you know? So those are the things. I see a number of inputs that can come in and use that same IFF, or, you know, friend versus foe type of information that comes in that'll sort of more, you know, less and less hacking, that type of stuff. But yeah, I think that once people get dependent upon other sources of information, because right now, how many people will go to Waze? You know, they think that they're, you know, they're seeing a little bit further because the community helped them see a little bit further down the road. And that's what technology will do. It'll give you a much more advanced look down the road. And we shouldn't have one lane to the right because somebody did have an accident, unfortunately. It shouldn't block up three miles back. We should know about it and then already be over, our cars shift over. Or something that would tell you, get over now, you know? But yeah, I do think it's going to be that type of collaboration of networks that's going to save us. Any other questions? Yeah.
I've got one quick one. So we talked a little bit about the different technology that will actually power autonomous vehicles. And obviously you can see a lot of it being tested on a day-to-day basis. Right now there are a lot of players from like OEMs, like Ford's doing some cool stuff with AVs. You know, Uber, Lyft, Via, all those companies have their hand in the pot, plus a number of startups. Do you see there, I guess in the future, being some type of consolidation between these companies, or really just like a bunch of independent players? Or you hop in a vehicle, it's going to be a different...
Yeah, I hate to cut the question off, but I'm going to stop right there. I see independent players. Everybody loves a zero-sum game in this world. They're going to try to people that take market share. There's not one person that I've spoken to that did not talk about their share and how to take a bigger share. I have no one that has talked about how we're really going to collaborate and do those type of things. It's just not that way. I know we may teach that in school, but it ain't the real world. You know, it is get yours, you know. And so that's it. And I see a number of ways that people do that. And most of the ways that I see is that people really start to influence the political. And if you can influence that, I mean, you know, that goes all the way back to, you know, by the time that, remember, people had to get longitude and they invented the clock, you know what I mean? And that state-sponsored innovation. I would love to see that model. You know, I think it was in England that did that, or maybe France, I forgot who did it. But that state-sponsored innovation, that's what allows us now to, that's why you see like international time in seconds and minutes and things like that. Because it was a clock on a boat, and that's how they kept where they knew where they were based off of a star. But those were contests. I would really love to see that. We don't see as much of that anymore. State-sponsored innovation is very cool because that does start to open things up. And the true winner of it does now get to start to take, they did invent it, but now it's through the state or through the government, and then that should give them a little bit more of a market share to begin with. Other people can collaborate, but that's what I think. Yes, sir.
Are you aware of anything like this going on in Texas? I mean, Texas is the 13th largest economy in the world.
Yes, yeah,
Urban, rural.
yeah. There's, I think, Texas A&M has a magnificent facility, and I think there's one in the south of the state and one in the north. Do you know where they are?
SWRI, Southwest Research, right? And also A&M Engineering has.
Yeah, that's the two that I know about. Yeah, I think that they're big. I love this one in Detroit. That's the one that hired me, so I gotta love them more, right?
We have nothing like that.
Yeah. So the state of Texas has some very good ones. Ohio has a very good one as well, and I think it's by Marysville, Ohio. Honda has a big old track out there. They're doing some good stuff. And you can see some stuff that's going on there. It's not complete competition. It's a little bit of competition. It's kind of like collaborative competition. And then because here's the thing, each of these tracks have better use cases than others. You know, like the one in Michigan has that big bridge and the big pipeline that goes 700 feet. And then they can really do winter models much better. You know, there's a number of things that they can do. That's what I would love to see in the space, is that you take advantage of what you got. You know, a lot of heat, a lot of sun, you go down south in Texas. That's what I'd love to see. It's sort of a cycle where people go through and use different tests. Anything else?
Hey, thank you very much, Jimmy. This has been a great talk. Jimmy drove all the way from San Antonio, and again has been kind enough to sponsor our meetup. So please reach out to him, ask him any questions. The next meetup we have is not going to be at Capital Factory because during South by it's like prime real estate. They don't let us be here. So we're going to be across the street at Dealerware. Dealerware is actually a part of Silicon Valley where everyone works. And the president of Dealerware, his name is Russ Lemmer, is going to be speaking to our group there. And they're sponsoring kind of like maybe even cocktails. We'll see. It'll probably just be beer and chicken tenders, but we'll see. I think the talk is going to be really valuable, and it'll be a great way to kick South by Southwest. We will be, as a group, inviting people from South by lists who are in the mobility space. So we expect that event to have people who are not from Austin. So we do some list scraping on the South by social app to get people from all over to come. So hope you guys can make it there.
What's the best way to kind of stay informed or stay abreast
the meetup.
of the meetup?
Yeah, the meetup.com. That one's listed there already. Sign up, you'll get the alerts for it. If anyone wants to propose to speak, just reach out to us on meetup.com. If you think there's someone who's awesome that you would want to have speak, you know, let us know. We'll fill this calendar up and we'll make it on.
Yeah, I think Silver Car would be great to come in, you know, for that perspective. I really
Thank you for signing me up.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Anyway, we got the space for a while longer. Thanks again, Jimmy. That was great. Thank you.
So nice to meet you.
I try to be like, I know there's gotta be a way. That's my when I go for a new service.
We're trying to set up, we're trying to get them. User research.
Yeah, Yeah, this is like some right now. I've been on the road. But yeah, I'm just going down. Maybe on your website. Oh, yes. Text the time. And I noticed it. Yeah. You should get a thing. It's there.
It's almost like being a test drive of the box. If you really solve that, you might just not renew it. You know what I mean? So we're looking for your risk profile. No, I can't Google it when you said it. You guys here in Austin or? Okay. How many cities are you live in? Here in Austin? No, I would say it's like. Oh, really?
Cheaper than that, actually. Usually they range from $100
And you're not depreciating someone else's
Especially now for a while. We were running across here about two.
Or you said like,
Don't buy an Austin, buy Houston.
So was your,
Austin just, it's my greatest.
So you're not I'm actually working on next two assignments. Now I'm getting reality. So I actually started in Argo in October. So maybe
less than 14, how these things are.
I carry two devices behind that phone.
Test. We're gonna do this and this is on our got 50,000 miles on it.